So now we're on to evaluating the internal parts of the motor, doing a little cleaning here and checking out the bearings, starting by using a pulley puller here to get the pulley sheave off. And this is just a technique that a little trial and error, different size pulley pullers. Sometimes it's easier than others. This one came off pretty easily. So that's off now. I like to always clean the shaft a little bit, look for any burrs or marks or nicks on that as well. What I'm doing now is adding a little bit of foam gasket to the junction box and the capacitor box. And this just prevents sawdust buildup. This is one of the areas where sawdust buildup really can be a problem over time, is in these boxes on the motor. And there was really, these older motors didn't really have any type of foam seal that was used. So I just add a little bit of adhesive foam gasket to the edges of all these boxes and the lid of the junction box to try to prevent the sawdust from accumulating in there. I'm getting all this adjusted here. And now we'll move on to the threaded rods. And so just working my way around all four of these, and then getting them started with some adjustable wrenches, and then pulling them out, and then lightly tapping with a hammer, and in this case I was using a screwdriver. You could use a wooden dowel if it's really stuck and you don't want to chip anything, but this came off really easy. This motor seems to have been maintained pretty well. Okay, so the motor's disassembled. Just to get a good look at the internals of the motor, I took the pulley off with pulley pullers, took the threaded rods out with some adjustable wrenches, and then carefully tapped the end caps off, or the end bells. They came off very easily. This motor definitely has been maintained. You can see here, let me see, there's these tiny two little dots that somebody made with a punch to show that where to line up everything when they put everything back together. So this means it's been maintained. Somebody's been in here before. And based on the lack of sawdust, it wasn't that long ago. So this means the motor's been maintained pretty well. I'm looking here at the leads, the insulation of the leads, and the color of the copper. The color of the copper still looks copper, so that means the windings probably aren't burned out. The bearing still is good, very smooth. And the leads, the insulation still looks solid. And again, not an accumulation of sawdust. This is great. Great news. On this side, the centrifugal switch is wired to this side, so I don't want to pull this off any further unless I really have to. So I'm just looking in here, and I'll blow out any sawdust. But again, there's really not much sawdust. I've seen some when you open them up and they're just caked. It just falls out. It's packed in there, and that's a problem because then motors overheat, even if you have thermal protection. So you want to clean these up as good as possible for that reason. So this is great news. Okay, so the cleaning up of the motor went well. Just used a toothbrush and light strokes to clean out the dust. Just wanted to show you the centrifugal switch, the contact here for the centrifugal switch. On this shaft, once it gets spinning, there's a centrifugal switch that opens up when it's spinning fast enough. And this contact right here, I just checked and make sure there was no sawdust buildup there. I brushed away all the sawdust that was on this plate here, and again, there wasn't much to begin with, but while I have it open, just blew out and brushed away carefully any sawdust. And on this side as well, but really it was not all that caked at all. I've seen a lot worse. So now I'll just reassemble, and we'll be all set. Okay, for motor reassembly, as you can see here, I'm putting the end bells back on, and I'm lining up those punch marks or any type of mark that was put on the motor. Make sure to do that if you take a motor apart, to put a mark on the center section and the end bells to make sure you line everything back up properly. And then putting the threaded rods back in, and I'm working my way around, tightening one at a time, little by little, so they're not doing any angled pressure on the edges of these end bells and motor frame. Working my way around little by little, sometimes little hammer taps to fully seat it, very light taps. And then again, working your way around to evenly distribute that pressure and that tightening to keep things seated properly. Looks pretty good.